The sun was beginning to set over the city of Capernaum. The streets, still bustling, echoed rumors of the miracles Jesus was performing. It was a remarkable day. Just before, a leper had been cleansed by the mere touch of the Master. Matthew 8.3, soon after, a Roman centurion received an extraordinary sign of faith. His servant, on the brink of death, was healed by just a word from Jesus. Matthew 8:13. As the disciples were still processing all they had witnessed, Jesus and his followers headed to Peter's house for rest. But there, another scene of pain awaited them. Inside the modest home, the atmosphere was thick with worry. In one of the rooms lay a weakened woman burning with fever. She was Peter's mother-in-law, and her condition alarmed the family. Fever wasn't just a common symptom in those times. Without modern medicine, many infections quickly turned fatal. The distress was genuine. This woman, once so active in the household, was now bedridden, unable to perform her daily tasks. The tense silence in the house reflected Peter's anguish and that of the others present. Paragraph 5. But then Jesus entered. With his compassionate gaze and unmistakable presence, he approached the bed. Everyone held their breath. What would happen next? The mood in Peter's house was one of apprehension. The fever afflicting his mother-in-law wasn't just a passing discomfort, but a serious illness. In ancient times, high fever often signaled a severe, incurable infection. For many, it was a harbinger of death. Peter and his family were restless. They had witnessed so many wonders outside, lepers cleansed, a servant healed from a distance. But now the need was inside their own home. Perhaps Peter wondered, does Jesus even care about our domestic troubles, about our family's pain? And it's precisely at this moment that Matthew records something powerful. When Jesus came into Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law lying in bed with a fever. Matthew 8:14. Jesus saw. He didn't need to be called or begged for help. He noticed. He perceived her suffering. This reveals something profound about Christ's character. He is not indifferent to human pain. While the world may overlook our struggles, he sees them. Jesus' watchful eyes didn't just witness the suffering, they carried the solution. Without hesitation, he moved toward the sick woman. But what would he do next? How would he respond to the fever consuming her body? The room was heavy with the heat of fever. Every labored breath from Peter's mother-in-law was a reminder of her frailty. The worried eyes of her family mirrored the agony of the moment. But while others saw only sickness, Jesus saw something more. Scripture teaches that God is not indifferent to our pain. The psalmist declares, "The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry." Psalm 34:15. Just as he heard Israel's cries in Egypt, as he saw Hannah's tears in the temple, now he saw this sick and vulnerable woman. Maybe someone there thought, but would Jesus care about something as minor as a fever? Often we assume God only acts in extraordinary circumstances, forgetting he cares about every detail of our lives. Yet here was Jesus, ready to intervene not in a battle or a storm, but for an ailing woman in an ordinary home on an ordinary day. Then something astonishing happened. Without uttering a word, Jesus touched her, a simple gesture yet brimming with meaning. What would this divine touch do to such a debilitating illness? Silence filled the room. Peter and the others' eyes were fixed on Jesus. Then, without delay, the Master stretched out his hand and touched Peter's mother-in-law, Matthew 8:15, a simple touch, yet charged with power. In that era, touching the sick was unthinkable for many. Fear of contamination and the belief that some illnesses were divine punishments kept people at a distance. But Jesus didn't withdraw. He never turns away from those who suffer. Just as he had touched the leper earlier, Matthew 3, he now touched this feverish woman. It was a touch of restoration, and instantly something miraculous happened. And the fever left her. Matthew 8:15. No medicine, no delay, no human effort. The fever vanished. Peter's mother-in-law, who had been helpless moments before, felt strength returning. Her body no longer burned, her skin was no longer sweaty. The sickness couldn't withstand Christ's touch. That moment demonstrated what Jesus always does. When he touches, everything changes. But the miracle didn't end there. Something unexpected followed. In an instant, the frail, feverish woman was relieved. The fever left her immediately. Matthew 8:15. No recovery period, no gradual healing. It was instantaneous. The transformation was so complete that to everyone's amazement, she didn't just feel better, she got up at once. Had it been a natural recovery, she'd still be weak, needing days to regain strength. But no, when Jesus heals, he heals. Completely. Impossible became a reality before their eyes. One moment, she was bedridden. The next, she was on her feet, full of vigor. Jesus' touch doesn't just remove sickness, it restores strength. This immediacy mirrors other healings. The paralytic who walked, Mark 2:12. The blind man who saw instantly, Mark 10:52. The woman with bleeding who felt healing the moment she touched Jesus, Mark 5:29. God's power knows no barriers. But what did this woman do after her supernatural healing? Her response is a lesson for us all. What would you do if, after being bedridden and powerless, you were instantly healed? Many might rest, process what happened, or celebrate. But Peter's mother-in-law did something extraordinary. She got up and began to serve Jesus and those in the house, Matthew 8:15. No pause, no hesitation. She wasn't just healed, she was empowered to act. Her reaction reveals a profound truth. A genuine encounter with Jesus leads to service. When we experience his touch, gratitude moves us to action. She didn't need a command. Her heart compelled her to serve spontaneously. This teaches us that healing isn't just for personal relief. God restores us to fulfill our calling, bless others, and dedicate our lives to him. This scene echoes other biblical moments. Isaiah, after encountering God, said, "Here am I, send me." Isaiah 6:8. Peter, witnessing Jesus' power, left everything to follow him. Luke 5:11. God's love propels us to surrender and obey. But this miracle wasn't an isolated event. What happened in that house was just the beginning of something greater. The sun had set, and news of Peter's mother-in-law's healing spread rapidly through Capernaum. That humble home became a beacon of hope in the darkness. Then, people began to arrive. Matthew records, when evening came, many demon-possessed were brought to him, and he drove out the spirits with a word and healed all the sick. Matthew 8:16. The one who had touched and healed Peter's mother-in-law now displayed his power on a larger scale. Men and women came from all over, some limping, others carried by relatives, some tormented by demons. But they shared one hope, Jesus, and the most astonishing part, he healed them all. No case was too small or hopeless. Where there was suffering, Jesus was willing to intervene. The scene was extraordinary. Imagine Capernaum's narrow streets crowded with people, some weeping, others shouting, and in their midst, Jesus, the Son of God, bringing freedom with just his word. Something more significant unfolded that night as Jesus healed the sick and freed the oppressed. These miracles weren't just acts of compassion, they fulfilled an ancient prophecy. Matthew emphasizes this. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. He took up our infirmities and bore our diseases. Matthew 8:17, quoting Isaiah 53:4. Centuries earlier, Isaiah had prophesied about the Messiah who would come to save souls and carry his people's pains. Now before their eyes, that prophecy was becoming reality. Each healed person was living proof that Jesus didn't come to teach, he came to transform. He didn't ignore human suffering, he took it upon himself. This revealed a profound truth. Jesus' ministry wasn't merely earthly, but eternal. Just as he healed physical sickness, he came to cure humanity's worst ailment, sin. Yet, despite the miracles and divine power on display, not everyone was willing to accept Jesus. The people's response was shocking. News of the Gadarene demoniac spread fast. The whole town came to see it, but instead of celebrating, something unexpected happened. Then the whole town went out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region. Matthew 8:34. They asked Jesus to leave. Those men valued their possessions more than Christ's presence. The herd of pigs represented wealth, and the financial loss mattered more to them than a man's decades-long deliverance. How often does this happen today? Many reject Jesus because they don't want him to change their lives. They want miracles and blessings, but when following Christ requires surrender, they walk away instead. But the freed Gadarene reacted differently. He begged to follow Jesus. Mark records his plea. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Mark 5:18. Yet Jesus had a purpose for him. Go home to your people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you. Mark 5:19. That man, once feared and avoided, became a preacher of the gospel. Jesus wants this from us. He heals, delivers, and transforms us not just for our sake, but to be living testimonies of his power today. The choice is ours. Will we be like the Gadarenes who rejected Jesus for earthly gain? Or like the delivered man who proclaimed God's wonders? If this message touched you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear of Jesus' power. Subscribe for more uplifting messages and turn on notifications. Share this video to help others discover God's love and power. Comment below, Jesus, I choose you. May God bless you abundantly.